Welcome to the latest episode of X Factor. Really excited today to be joined by Christian Leard, who is the CEO of Perennials and Sutherland. Full disclosure, I worked with Christian to help him land that opportunity in 2023. But what we're going to unpack is his journey from a larger company executive into making the leap into the CEO of a private equity-backed mid-market company, what that journey was like, all the twists and turns, lessons learned, and then kind of looking back at, the first 5 quarters in the seat, some other observations and lessons learned. So I think for anybody in our audience who's embarking on a search, whether it's your first time in private equity or not, anybody who's newer in a deal or anybody at all that just likes a good story, we're really happy to have Christian. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rob. That's
Okay,
awesome.
good deal. So Christian, just give us a little bit of color on your background
Sure.
prior to arriving at Perennials.
Yeah. So immediately before Perennials, I was the president of Levelor, which is a window treatment company owned by Hunter Douglas, so the world's largest kind of blinds and shades company. Levelor at one point was owned by Newell Brands, which I worked for about 15 years in sales and marketing. So I had a little connection with the industry, but took a break from Newell and went to work at a grill company, actually, as at Charbroil as a senior vice president. Learned a lot about ops and sales and marketing as well on that side, and then was lured back over to Levelor once Hunter Douglas bought them. So that's what I was doing immediately prior, and had a full, had the full P&L. We had manufacturing facilities in North America, U.S. and in Mexico. So it was it was a traditional president role, reported to the CEO, full autonomy. So it was a good gig, and I was there for, as I said, about 6-7 years.
Yeah, terrific. And we'll get more into the story of where you are today, but just for reference, give everybody the thumbnail sketch of Perennials.
Yeah, so Perennials, Perennials and Sutherland, and we are a manufacturer and marketer of outdoor furniture, actually luxury outdoor furniture, important to say, performance fabric, and rugs. And then we're also now entering into a new category of wall covering. So the vast majority of our business is sold through our own showrooms. We have about 20 showrooms around the world. We sell primarily through designers or decorators that then are selling to their end clients. So we're a package. We're not necessarily selling to end users or customers directly. We're marketing more in that B2B world to designers and interior decorators. And we also do a big retail business with restoration hardware, primarily in fabric. So, but our business has been around for 45 years. We've been in the manufacturing game. We own our own plants in Mexico as well as India, where we weave rugs, and in Mexico we do all of our fabric, and then our furniture is sourced from Thailand and Brazil primarily, but pretty high price points. Our furniture is in the, depending on the collections, $15,000 to $30,000 range, and our fabric is on the kind of highest end of performance material, but really well-known brand. If you'd have to do a slice of a slice of a slice to say we're the Kleenex of luxury performance fabric. Perennials it's very kind of ubiquitous in the designer trade world. So pretty cool. I'm a brand snob as an individual and in work. So this has been nice for me to be able to still run a strong branded company, albeit a bit smaller than I've worked with in the past.
Yeah, no doubt. And to put it into a little context, if you paid a lot of money to have custom outdoor furniture built in a bespoke fashion for your outdoor living space, or if you happen to own a mega yacht, which has, of course, by definition, a lot of outdoor seating, chances are Perennials fabrics are covering the upholstery of that.
Better than average chance, and it could even be Sutherland furniture with Perennials fabric and a Perennials rug on the inside of the yacht. We just actually had our town hall, and I spoke to the whole company today and showed our some installation shots of a new rug product that we rolled out. That the first job was $150,000. It was 3 rugs on a yacht. So it was pretty cool to see. But yeah, marine applications are pretty big for us too.
Well, since my first home in 1996 cost $65,000,
That's right. That's right. I like to say I'm doing pretty well, and I can't even afford our stuff. So,
yeah,
and I feel like I've done okay in my career.
yeah, no doubt. So a really cool niche business, nice size mid-market company, global manufacturing footprint, complex supply chain, multi-channel distribution. So nothing like a lot of complexity to bring out the best in a leader. So
Right.
good for
That's right.
you.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right,
you.
so let's go back in time. It's 2023. You're still at Levelor,
Yeah.
and you
Actually,
start to
22. No, it's 22. We
yeah,
started to, we
excuse me. Yeah,
started
yeah.
talking in 22. Yeah.
That's right. So let's go back to Q1 of 22. You're just starting to think about maybe what's next. So just give us a sense of
Sure.
what led you to start thinking about maybe making the leap from large company division president into smaller company CEO.
Yeah. So, the Hunter Douglas was acquired by 3G Capital. So in the world of private equity, they're the 800-pound gorilla. They own Budweiser, Burger King, Kraft Heinz. So a big shop purchased Hunter Douglas for about $12 billion. We knew the model of what 3G was going to do with the business. And again, right, wrong, or indifferent, but a lot of it was merging manufacturing, going to more of a shared services model, stripping out a lot of costs. But the world of a standalone president within a business looked like it was fairly bleak. And for me, that's why I went to that role. I had kind of worked my career to get to that platform of full P&L ownership, manufacturing, the whole 9 yards. And so as I started to get line of sight to that being changed, I knew in my mind it was time to start exploring opportunities. And I'd had a lot of conversations with private equity, recruiters, and it just didn't seem like that right fit for me at the time. But then I kind of made it my own part-time job to find a new full-time job, and was lucky enough to have a few opportunities come my way. And it was, I think, one of the things, and I have a lot of peers that struggled with this same thing, is moving from, I ran multi-billion-dollar businesses at Newell Brands as a, kind of a pseudo GM or senior vice president or what have you. And almost the larger that your role got, the financial responsibility felt smaller. I mean, my business at Leveler was plus 500 million, and I'm significantly smaller. We're significantly smaller than we are today, even though I have a much larger operating role. I think some of the mental mindset shift was, is that okay in a career progression? When you look at, people can say you should be taking bigger roles, you should be doing things that have more financial value. And I found that, as I said, many peers and friends of mine are in roles that are very similar to mine, where we're all in that same mid-market level as CEOs. And um, I I think some of the best advice that I got from people that have had, run, billion, $2 billion PE businesses to sell, is that think about the ability to transact, right? Because all of this is shifting mindset from what have I done in the last quarter, and how can I say, how well I have done, to casting a vision for where the business is going to go. And what is that growth trajectory that you're going to put the business on, and show that that path to success. And when you're running a smaller business, much easier to sell at a large multiple than selling a $2 billion business at the same multiple. So the market is just much broader for those smaller businesses, and the learnings that you get are very similar. And that's the part that, some of it is, is there ego that you need to watch out for on these larger, jobs that you used to have down to this
Mhm.
point? But I got through that pretty quick. The learnings that I've been able to glean from this last year and a half are more than I've ever had in my career.
Yeah, that makes sense. I hear myself counseling execs who are coming from bigger divisions to standalone CEO. You can feel pretty good about anywhere from a 2 to 10x factor reduction.
Yeah,
You could go from $1 billion P&L to running $100 million standalone business. It's still going to push you to the limits of your capabilities. You could
yep,
probably go, 2 to 1 and survive it, but setting aside your ego, because the last thing you want to do is bite off more than you can chew and not
yeah.
make it to exit, to your point.
No, that's
Um,
yeah. You gave me that feedback loud and clear as well. And I think, and balancing opportunities. Again, this was other CEOs that I had talked to saying that what is the deal that you feel strongest about bringing to a positive transaction and a positive end result. And that's again, it's so different from corporate real kind of traditional corporate world is that you don't think about the end result is I want to sell the business. The end result is I want to do my job well. I want to hit my deliverables, hit my KPIs, and high five my boss. And when you're running the business with the ultimate goal of selling the business, it's just different. And thinking of that mindset of what are the things that we can do, what can we build, what can we improve, and make this as marketable as possible for either the next sponsor or a strategic is different, and that takes a little while because you take risks differently, you evaluate opportunities differently, um, and that takes a little while to settle in.
Yeah, you still want to make your quarters, of course, but the quarters
Mhm.
are planned as part of an arc that
Yeah.
leads us to a transactional
Yeah,
product
yeah, and
goal.
it's building the vision. And I hate corporatisms, but the test and learn mentality. We would do that a lot in publicly traded roles that I was in. You'd prove it out and then you'd invest. Well, it's rapid test and learn here because again, it's showing untapped market opportunity and where the business can go, not where has it been. Right I mean, you can have our wall coverings business, for example. It's a $2.5 billion luxury TAM for $2.5 billion for the luxury wall covering market. And that is a slice of one of the fastest growing categories in home improvement. If you grab the rest of the market, it's a $10 billion market, and we're only going for this little $2.5 billion slice. We have $0 in it today, and everything that I see in all the companies that I evaluate, I see chunks of $4, $5, $10 million in this wall covering category. And for a company our size, we get a fair share of that, and we've grown our business by 15 to 20% in a really high margin, fast growing category that the next buyer looks at and says, this should be a $200 million opportunity for this brand
Mhm.
business. And again, it's small, tangible, verifiable proof points, which is different than I'm going to show you 4 quarters of success on this, and then I want you to give me $1 million to invest. It's just different, right? It's a little bit different. Now I'm also fortunate to run a very profitable business. There's different stages of PE ownership, and if you're a distressed asset versus a valuable asset, we're a very valuable asset in the portfolio, which gives us some liberties that maybe some of the other businesses and some of the other folks in different stages of that don't have. But we are a very profitable piece of business, and it allows me to do things a little differently than maybe some other peers within our group.
Yeah, yeah, good deal. So back in 22, sound like Uncle Rico here for a second.
Yeah,
Back in 85,
yeah, that's right.
but back in 22,
Back before cell phone.
yeah, right. Did you do anything to get into the slipstream of CEO deal flow opportunity, or was it already there and you just started to lean into it more?
I think a combo. I think it was really leaning into the conversations when they came my way. and then doing some, kind of selective reach outs to my network. But I think a lot of it was just making myself more available for the conversations, and building those relationships within the space, that were always, like I said, the 2-3 years prior, I had been fielding those calls, but really not pursuing them heavily. So I think,
Mhm.
and some of it, one of the other questions you had was how to frame the experience that I had, and kind of pivot that experience towards the full standalone P&L CEO piece. I think the big difference for me was, everything is really done through the board, and having everything being done through the board, and the PE, and I kind of include those synonymously, because our PE sponsor is the 3 members are on the board. And instead of it being a little bit easier and kind of passing that to the CEO, then he would carry that onto the board. So making sure that the experience that I had was translatable, and starting to think through how did I work through my CEO, and kind of our advisory team, and turn that into a parallel to the board.
Mhm.
So that was a little different, and I would say that many of these businesses at this level were either founder started or continue to be founder led, right? And my business, Perennials and Sutherland is the last name of the 2 founders of the business, who were actively involved when I took the role. So much so that they both started and grew the company, and then I came in and they both reported to me. And some of that is understanding the dynamic of how do you manage the founders of the business, with respect for what they have built, but also with the knowledge of what they haven't done to get the business to the next level,
Mhm.
which is, and next level is the wrong way to put it, but there's for my stuff, in my example, the founders were incredibly creative, and took all of the risk that they took to get the business where it was today, is incredibly impressive. They're legends in the industry, and they're famous in their space. But I think they both would agree, and admit that, hey, we don't like this one part, and that one part was the CEO part. Like, we don't like the numbers, we don't like the financials, we don't like the governance, or this. We like to create things, right? So it's that shift of, you're now a significant sized business that has to be managed, and it has to be run proactively with process and discipline, and not gut. And it's that kind of shift,
Mhm.
is a little bit, nuanced with the founders that are part of the business.
Yeah. So you start to lean in more to some serious CEO processes in the back half of 22. Just general observations about what recruiters were like to deal with. Well, let's just start there, and then we'll move
Yeah,
into the actual client
yeah.
interview process.
So I think, I've talked to you about this in the past. There's a difference between the recruiter who sees you as just the opportunity for them to close a deal and to move on to their next role, and then there's the recruiters that are actually trying to marry up opportunities with the right people. And I had several, I'd say several processes go pretty far, where I really just felt like, I interviewed well. I would seem to be the right candidate for what the headhunter saw me as, but I didn't actually see this as being the home run role for me. It didn't marry everything I had done up with the opportunity, or done up to that point with the opportunity. And I think this one, you personally helped me see that in a way that has actually played out quite well, with my background, and how we go to market, and how we do manufacturing, but really just the leverageable skills that I brought into this job, and why it made it the right choice for me. And not everybody was as forthright about that. It was, it was more about, could I be the one to fit that bill? Yes, no, and versus what's the home run, right?
Yeah, yeah, makes sense, and I appreciate the comments. So I guess for our audience, look, there are plenty of good search firms out there, and I have lots of professional peers. But like any industry, there's a variety of experiences out there. So you might as well default to relying on your own judgment of fit and your own diligence at the nth degree. Kind of take whatever the recruiter is saying with a grain of salt. And if they happen to be one of the sincere, thoughtful ones, then all the better. But if you're on the other end of a transaction, you'll want to think for yourself, I suppose.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Okay. So then next, let's talk about the interviews with private equity. And I'm going to smile
Yeah,
because I've seen every interview behavior, I've seen every point of feedback from clients, and some of it makes sense, some of it's a bit of a circus.
yeah,
But what were your observations about what it was like to interview with various private equity firms,
yeah,
and any advice you'd give folks who are gearing up their own
yeah.
search?
Well, I mean, the some of the smartest people that you'll ever interview with are on the private equity side. Their backgrounds, they're highly skilled, most very academic, and it's a different interview process. There's quite a bit of analytics on the fly. I think that there's a lot of they will buy businesses with a thesis of X, and they're trying to play out that thesis with you to see how you fit within the construct of what they have laid out for the business. And that's, where are we going to grow? How are we going to save? What are we going to do? Kind of that interesting mix. And it's hard to prepare for, quite honestly, because you just don't know. You don't know which personality that you're going to be interviewing with in the private equity group, and I don't think you live life as yourself, both at home and at work. And I just always approach things as I am. This is who I am, and I'm not going to put on airs to try to sound differently to a Harvard graduated McKinsey person for 20 years, and or a 30-year-old who is wonderkind, and it's
Hmm.
it just is what it is. But you'll run, I ran into all of those personalities, and I think just understanding how to, I think with most of these folks, it's how do you articulate how you grow a business? How do you articulate where you look for profit, and what you've done in the past that replicates the same thing, and what's the process you follow? How disciplined are you? And how do you keep that with an air of authenticity? And how can you build a team? And how do you build followership? And I think that it's getting outside of who am I talking to, and the innate the stereotypes that follow along, right? There's a lot of them, but
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I will say, and I will disclaim, I feel incredibly lucky. Our sponsors are incredibly supportive. And getting through the process with them was actually, I was more excited about my role because of them instead of in spite of them. And I think I've heard a lot of those that are like, well, I really like the job. The sponsor's a grind, and here's all the things that I have to do. They've made my experience better. And I think I don't know if I'm the exception on that or the rule, but I get a ton from them, and they have different facets of the organization that are there to support CEOs, different functional areas of the organization that I'm able to tap into. That you take advantage of that, and it helps you become a better, especially first time CEO. It helps you be a more effective first time CEO if you use the resources that are in front of you, right? There's no reason to shoulder the burden if people are standing there saying we're willing to give you these tools. It's
Mhm.
not we're willing to give you support because we don't trust you. And you don't have to, you don't climb a mountain without a Sherpa. And they want to give you those things and make you successful because ultimately they're there for you to make them a lot of money in the transaction. They like me a whole bunch, but my goal is to build the business up, to help sell the business, and to return shareholders' equity at a level that is higher than they anticipated. And then
Mhm.
hopefully do it in a way where I've built the foundation between them where we can do it again. And there's multiple CEOs that are on deal 2, deal 3 within our sponsor, which is exciting for me. And
Yep, I'd agree with that. And back to your interview comment, and then we'll touch on sponsor
sure,
evaluation as part of how you made your choice when you had a couple different offers at the 11th
sure,
hour. So I always think of it like when you're interviewing with folks, I couldn't agree more, Christian. You got to be real and authentic. Words like authenticity sound new age, but I'm here to say they want to know who you really are and what your deal is,
hmm,
no matter how hard they might be to relate to. If they're, off the charts, analytical, borderline human computers, you still just got to be yourself. And what they want are two things. One, you got to get them comfortable that they'd be good fiduciaries, putting your skill set into
yeah,
that role. But the second, more elusive bar is what they do is really hard. They got to raise capital, find deals, put risk on,
yeah,
go through all kinds of transitions. And they want, if they're going to do something for 5 tough years, they want to do it with somebody they're going to be excited
yeah,
to work with.
that's right.
And so I don't care if you're introverted, extroverted, but whatever that X factor emotion is that makes you kind of undeniable, competitiveness, passion, intensity. Let that show through. And if they don't like it, you wouldn't want to be there anyway.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's a great point. You want to do all these things with people you want to spend time with, and people that are going to run through walls for you.
mhm.
And pass the airport test is my favorite, which is you're delayed for 6 hours in an airport with somebody, and who do you want to hang out with for that time? And you want to surround yourself with people that pass the airport test.
Yeah, or even we're stuck on the tarmac, five
Yes.
feet from the gate. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I
um,
had that yesterday, coincidentally, for an hour. So
that's
yeah.
that's that's all of us these days. So now we're at the late stage of your search. You've got a couple indications of interest from different opportunities. And what I remember you and I talking about is, a framework where, okay, just think through a few things. One, do you like this sponsor? Is that going to be an organization that you feel like you can thrive within their governance model? Secondly, do you believe the asset is reasonably well positioned to get to an eventual liquidity event, which you've gone out of your way to make a very important point here, that is the end game. Like that's the only point of doing this. And then thirdly, which is the real triumvirate, is can you yourself take what's already good and accelerate it to something better? Too
Right.
many people I deal with, they want to be the icing on the cake, but what private equity wants is they want you to bake the heck out of it first and then ice it.
Yeah.
But beyond those three dimensions, was there anything else that, of course, economics have to make sense? Anything else that
Yeah.
led or played a part in your decision?
No, yeah, I mean, you did a really nice job summarizing it, but I think it's and this is so obvious, but where can you personally add the most value? And I think is one that maybe you didn't hit, and that I looked in my evaluation, I looked at where operations is not where I cut my teeth, but it's one of the things that I learned along the way. And running a business where you manufacture and ops isn't what you did growing up was something that my business here settled in. It's a very complex business from a manufacturing standpoint, but I understood it based on my last role. So that was I've knocked a pillar down of something I feel like I'm not going to have to learn from the ground up because I know how we make product, and it's not easy. And so with knowing that, I know where some of the cost levers are. I know the supply chain side. I know ways in which I can help improve direct labor and so on and so forth. So there was a big piece that would have been unanswered for me and another role I was evaluating because it didn't have those same levers. It didn't have that same comfort. So that was a big piece. I think that the level of, is this a distressed asset versus a valuable asset? And I knew that we were, one of the crown jewels of the, portfolio companies within our PE sponsor. And that, that gave me a lot of encouragement. I think, understanding the runway of the brand and where else that you can go or what other categories you can tap into was a big piece for me. So I'd say that in my evaluation process, the one thing moving from public companies or large private companies to a PE environment is really understanding and getting comfort with what that equity element is and understanding the realities of the waterfall that you're given and how realistic the hurdle rates are and maybe some of the right questions to ask. um, it was just new to me, and it was new to know where to push and really where to dig into. I'm much smarter now a year and a half later than I was 2 years ago when we were in the midst of talking about this, because you just don't know where to push and you don't know how to push. Um, and you'll any chart or any PowerPoint can say whatever the author wants it to say, right? And I like to say that could be PowerPoint fantasy and not reality. But understanding the equity element, and this is advice I've given to a lot of people in my same process, just knowing the right questions to ask. And that's not to say that I was given something that was wrong or it turned out to be different. It was new, and that relative newness of that made me less than comfortable through the process.
Mhm.
So, but no, I mean, ultimately, I think I'm very happy with how it ended up, but again, new.
Well, sure. It's new, and every sponsor structures them differently. There's different tax treatments. There's different vesting schedules.
Yep.
Some sponsors are more liberal than others on assumptions around the model.
Yep.
Because, as a reminder to our audience, for those that may not yet be in private equity, this is the equivalent of an option grant. There is no value the day you get it. You get a
No,
slice of future value creation that you help
that's right.
lead,
Yeah,
presuming you stay through exit. And it's different and unique and really bears a lot of attention.
that's right. And it's the options. It's like everybody understands what an option is, and you hear this term in PE world. It's called phantom equity, which is in essence, it's a stock, it's an option. But just again, it's understanding what it means, how to grow that value, where you sit within the equation. How everybody kind of has when you go in. Here's the time frame from when you start to when we think we'll transact. And understanding how realistic is that, because when do you hit your hurdle rates that pay back the shareholders in a way that you raise funds under the auspice that you think you will do X with this business, and that's your hurdle rate, and being really frank with, well, what's the trajectory? How are we doing this? Is this unrealistic? Or is this attainable? And I think understanding that, and again, sometimes you don't know until you're in the saddle anyway. But understanding the framework of it, and how good of a standalone investment is this from an outside perspective looking in, is something that gave me some comfort too, looking at the opportunities that I had. If I was an outside investor, would I invest in this business myself?
Yeah, and you, because you were in an analogous business model, knew a lot of the right questions to ask at the 11th hour to flush out the clarity of your understanding. On the flip side, I talked to a lot of executives mid-hold period, and one of the reasons they're willing to make a move is that they admit they didn't know what they were getting into. It wasn't the asset that they thought. The knife was
Yeah,
falling faster and it was sharper than was advertised.
that's right.
Sponsor didn't necessarily go out of the way to disclose some of the stuff. And oh, by the way, they didn't do the other thing that you did, which is to marry up the look in the mirror with what you're good at, with what this company
That's
needs
right.
as its chief levers of value
Yeah,
creation. So,
you're right. Yeah, I feel very fortunate that I shoot everybody straight. I feel like I was shot straight in this deal as well. And there's not a lot of dirty laundry. There's always a few things that you uncover that were a little different, but I mean nothing that was game changing. And I knew what I was walking into when I walked into it, and it was about as I had expected.
Yeah, I can remember a few conversations we had that were in the scare you away bucket, and I was kind of clenching on the inside, hoping that you wouldn't run away, but we wanted to get all those idiosyncrasies on the table, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. You're like I said, we're our own best career coaches, and you've got to be mindful that it doesn't matter what anybody says, nobody's looking out for you as much as you're looking out for yourself. So you've got to ask every question in the world and feel
Hmm.
comfortable, and make sure that it's, you're not crossing a line with it. But I ask every single question that you can until you feel comfortable.
Yep, that's right. And maybe the best decision you can make about an opportunity is to decline it and wait for the next one because
That's right. Yeah.
the pain of not getting to exit financially and professionally
Yep.
and from a go forward candidacy standpoint is pretty real
Yeah.
and is to be avoided at all costs.
Yeah, and you've said this a lot, and it's it's um it's a select group of people that actually get these roles to begin with. It's even a smaller subset that bring it to a successful transaction.
Hmm.
And so, feeling like what you're doing and who you're working for and the business that you're shepherding, that you're going to be able to sell it and bring it to a transaction is what we're here for.
Hmm.
And I want to be, I feel strongly that I'm going to be on that side that has both the job and the successful sale. So feeling comfortable about that going into it and
Hmm.
looking for the pitfalls and seeing, what are the other competitors in this space. It's really hard to get visibility to. There could be 8 companies like the one that you're talking to that are always up for sale that never sell, or when they do, the 1 out of 8 that sells for a multiple that's not acceptable. It's good to know those things. It's
Hmm.
hard to get that until you're until you're in the saddle and you really kind of know what that market looks like. But yeah, the more you learn about the game, it's very interesting how it
Yeah,
goes.
and you've been complimentary about your sponsor, and part of that is, I mean, I do like them a lot, but it's it's less about putting them on a pedestal and more saying they kind of know who they are,
Hmm.
and therefore they know what kind of CEOs they want to hire, so that there's chemistry there. They are not the most intrusive of sponsors. They do not
Hmm.
have operating partners. They want you to occupy the seat and be a fully equipped alpha CEO and
Yeah,
drive the bus.
that's right.
They want to be passengers and help navigate, but they now if you can't drive or you don't fill the seat, they're going to start
That's right.
encroaching, and that's the way it
Yeah,
goes. But there are other sponsors for some of our listeners who are highly prescriptive and very controlling, and you feel more like a president than a CEO. And
that's right.
that's okay too for the right
Yep.
person. Just know thyself and try to get a feel for what you're getting yourself into, because the notion that, quote, we partner with management, which is the calling card of every private equity firm, it means something different in every instance.
Yeah. When that's it, and it's spot on because I've seen from my situation, which is they're as involved as I feel like they need to be versus the opposite. And now we're doing well. We're a good business. We're profitable. We're hitting our numbers. We're doing the things that we told them we would do, right? So that keeps everybody, and that's with any job. That's not just in the PE world, right? Do what you say you're going to do, and you get very
Mhm.
little, you very little blowback. But some of the leads in the PE firms, want to be the CEO of 5 businesses, and so they want you to pass everything through them. And again, I feel like I'm quite lucky that we're doing well enough to not have that level of scrutiny.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, great stuff. So, last quick topic that we've kind of already touched on, but I wanted to see if there's anything else there, is kind of the looking back on your first 5 quarters in private equity. You've shared some thoughts that, okay, gosh, this is about building a saleable asset, quarters matter, but they're organized in the arc of a hold period.
Yep.
We want to be mindful about increasing enterprise value, but doing so in a manner that creates white space for the next owner to be just as excited about owning the business as we are today.
Yeah.
The speed and pace of execution. Anything else that you were like, wow, okay, I knew private equity was different, but it's really different.
No, I again, I think you well summarized that. I think that the speed element, the creating the white space for the next owner, that needs to be done quickly. I would say that, I look back, I think I was probably a little bit too, um, I evaluated things for a little bit too long on certain pieces that I knew were going to be growth levers. But I didn't want to be the person who said, we're all in, let's go. I wanted to make sure I was making the right decision. And I mean, you obviously want to make the right decision, but I think too much analysis on some of these things. You want to go fast, especially when you're not deploying a ton of capital and you're putting a ton at risk. So getting that out there faster, and learning how to operate as a CEO versus a president of a publicly traded company really is different, and it's fast. It is, and again, it's more forward looking than looking in arrears and saying this is what we've done.
Mhm.
And then I'll say, on a personal note, getting comfortable with the lifestyle change. I mean, there's many folks out there that are commuting, and I'm commuting for my role, and I knew that coming in. But getting your life in order of how does this affect me personally? How does this affect my family? When you jump on a plane at 6:30 on Monday morning and you're usually back Thursday or Friday, it's different. It sounds great out of the gate. I'm going to be a first CEO, and this is awesome, but that um, getting a balance, trying to find a balance of that is important, and it's hard in the first year and a half because you want to be there, you want to be on the road, you want to be with your people, and just understanding that there has to be a balance, and it's striking a balance on being gone 70-80% of the time. So for some of us, and that's kind of what mine has been. So just being mindful that will happen, and you just need to figure out how to balance it.
Yeah, and endurance is a real thing for these roles, and that's the case if you're doing a 10-minute commute to a local company you're running down the street, and certainly exacerbated if you're a time zone away.
Yeah.
So, well, listen, Christian, thank you so much for joining. This was
That.
fun and great insight. Good to go back down memory lane with you, and I'm not surprised things are going so well at Perennials. So, Godspeed, continued success, and we'll have you back down the road if you're willing.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.